So we just finished that little profile icon and lets our users sign in and log in. And right next to that, you see that we have that hamburger menu. And in this lesson, that's what we want to cover. So what do we want this to do? Well, it needs to be able to direct the user to a few pages. So when they click it, we need a drop down to appear with a couple options such as manage your property or your trips or your settings page. Now to do this, we're going to use another element that we haven't touched on yet. And we're going to come down and select our group focus element. Now, a group focus element is basically just a group that acts like a pop-up, and I'll show you what I mean here. Let's drag it on the page. See, it snaps to the top right. The reason is because it's referencing that page element. So the very top parent element, it's referencing that, and you can let it reference any element you want, meaning based off the element you select it to reference, that's how we're going to position it. So we need it to reference this icon right here, so that way we can position right below. So you can see we have this reference element option right here. Let's select the drop down, and we want to select that icon, and it's the, let's name that. Let's give this a name so we know what it is. So it'll be icon, and we'll say menu. And now let's go back and reference that in our group focus. So we'll reference that menu icon. We'll come and select. And you can see it snaps automatically right almost where we want it. So we select this menu icon and we get this drop down group focus pop-up element combination. So let's add a few things in there. And basically what we want to add is just 4 text elements. And the user will be able to click on these and navigate to various pages. That's kind of what a menu is. So let's drag a text and we'll drag it across the page. Let's style just one of them. That way we can copy paste them down and just change the text. So for the group, we actually want to change the layout. And of course, what do we want? Well, we're looking for column. And let's center it. So now let's uncheck our fixed width, of course. We'll get rid of the min width. And of course, let's leave our min height because we don't want that to go to nothing and then we can't put anything in there. Super annoying. Let's give it some margin. On top, we'll give it 20. We'll give it 20 left and 20 right, just so it's off the parent group a bit and not touching the sides. Then we want to change the text alignment. So let's come back to appearance. We'll give it a left alignment. That should put the text on the left. Now let's copy and paste this a few times. So 1, 2, 3, and then you can see we're running out of room. So let's get rid of those margins because we don't need them this far apart. That looks a little strange. So let's get rid of the top margins on these 3 here. So we'll select the top margin. We'll give it a 0. We'll give this a 0. We might actually be giving these a little bit of margin. I think 5 might be a little bit better. But let's see how it looks. We have 0. We have 0. That actually looks fine to me. I think those are good enough for now. Let's change our text. So for the first link, we're going to want to let the user go to their trips. So if they have planned trips or past trips, we want them to be able to navigate to that page. We'll type trips, and then we'll go next. And then we want the user to manage their listings. So we can go manage properties. And that way a host can go and manage their properties that they have listed. And the next thing we'll change is our booking page. Let's call it our bookings page. So we'll have bookings. And then we'll have a settings option. So let's name this settings. That way a user can go and edit their profile. So we have that. And this looks all right. Doesn't look that great. Let's change the borders and give it a bit of a roundness. So we'll come down to roundness and we'll give it a 10. Just come and select 10. Let's do that. And for the border, we'll give it a solid border. And this looks all right, but pretty basic. Let's change the border of the parent. So we'll give it a roundness of 10. We'll give it a actual border, so a solid border, just so we can kind of see it pop up. Then let's bold these texts because I don't like the look of it right now. Let's bold all the text. Bold, bold, bold. So that looks fine for our purposes now, but of course you can play around with styling, make this a whole lot better than it is right now. But let's move on to the actual functionality and what we want to happen here. First thing I want to show you is this manage properties text. Now we don't want to display manage properties to every user. We only want to display that to the host. So how do we do that? How do we display something only if certain criteria is met? Well, that's where we go to our conditional. So we have to define a condition. And what do we want to happen here? Well, we want to check to see what type of the user is and then make this element visible or not. So what do we have available to us? right away you can see this element is visible. So we want to leave that checked how it is, and if the user is a host, it will appear visible. Otherwise, it's not going to be visible. So let's do that. Let's go to when, we'll select current user, and we'll select their account type. Now for the account type, we can then select an operator. So if the account type is, then it gives us our options. So remember we made that guest and host option. So if the type is host, we want to display that element. If it's not, we want to hide it. So great. We have that set up. Now let's give some navigation to our user. To do that, it's going to require us to set up pages. Let's come over to our pages and make these pages right now. For trips, we'll just call it a trips page. We might be changing the titles later, but let's just keep it aligned to what we have over in our pop-up. Let's go back to navbar. What else do we have? Let's show the pop-up again. So we have manage properties, bookings, and settings. Okay, so manage properties or manage. We'll have a bookings page. So bookings. And then remember, we already made that settings page, so we don't need to do that. You can see it right here. Let's come back to our reusable element. So navbar will display the pop-up as group A. Let's give that group a name so we know what it is. So our group focus is our menu. That way we can reference it later. Now for the pop-up, we want to change the sizing. Remember our layout, we didn't fix this yet, so let's do that right now. This is gonna act a little bit different though, because we kind of do want it to stay relatively that size, but we will change the width of it. So let's do a even 250. And then let's change the height. So right now it's 192. Let's actually change that to say 100. That way it doesn't take up that much space. Let's see if we actually give that a 0, see what happens. So let's give it a 0. Now you can see the settings is almost hugging the bottom. We don't want that. Let's fix that and give it a bottom margin of 20 just to push it off a little bit. That looks a lot better. And now our sizings and everything should be set up correctly. Let's go in and manage the workflow of when each of these users click something on this menu, it navigates to the right page. So we'll go to trips, we'll go to workflow, and we will select a navigation, go to page, trips, and we're just gonna do that for each of those elements. So come back to our design, and we'll fix that. Let's uncheck it and check it again so it pops up in the correct place. Let's go to manage properties. We'll add a workflow. So let's select an action. We'll go to navigation, go to page again, and we'll select our manage page. Now, you could also add a conditional to check for a host here, and I would recommend you do that for being super secure. Again, we're not gonna add all of the only when and conditionals that we possibly can in this tutorial, but when you're building your own, I do recommend adding as many as you can. So moving forward, let's go to our navbar again. And we have bookings and settings. So we'll add the bookings workflow, navigation, go to page, bookings. And then the last one is our settings. So we'll come back to design, settings, and we'll change that navigation to go to our settings page. So we have all of our navigation set up. Let's assign these a color. So let's do blue for all of our menus. Blue. And this is just, again, a way to organize all of your workflows because you're going to be having a lot of them. So blue, 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 blue. And now we have organized all of our workflows. We've set up our navigation menu, but there's still one piece we're missing. We need to go back to our icon. So come back to your design, click the icon, and we actually need to give the icon itself the workflow to show that group focus. So we'll add an action. We'll go to our element actions we want to show, which is going to be that group focus. We can scroll all the way down, select group focus menu, and now we should be showing that menu. Now let's give that a blue highlight, just like the rest, to be organized. Great. So now we have that set up. Let's go to our design. Let's go to our index page and preview. So let's see what we built. Now if we click that icon, let's see what happens. You see our pop-up appears. If we click off, it disappears. That's exactly what we want to happen. Now if we come and select trips, we'll be taken to our trips page. You can see in the URL. If we go back. Now, one thing to notice here is I can see manage properties, but if we come to Bubble, you're gonna see that my account is a guest. So why is that? We'll come to data. We'll see that I do have an account type as guest. So let's go back to our navbar and see what's going on. Now you can see if we select our group focus, go to manage properties and edit, come to our conditional, and it says the current user's account type is host. Well, it doesn't say anything if it's not host. All we're displaying is if it is host, definitely display, but we didn't give it a condition to say, don't display when you're a guest. So let's define another condition. Let's select the current user. So current user, account type is, and instead of is, let's select is not host. So if it is not a host, then we don't want to display the element. So we'll do the opposite. This element is not visible. So let's see if that doesn't fix the issue. Let's come back, go to index, go to preview, and let's select that menu again. We'll run next, and let's click the icon. If we click it, we can see it is not visible now, but this looks really weird. We don't want this gap here if it's not visible to a guest. We want these to come up and fill in the space. So how do we do that? Let's go back to our editor, and let's go to our nav bar. So we're back in our nav bar. Let's pull up that group again. Now let's go into Manage Properties and Edit and see what we can't do. Let's go to Layout. And you see this option here that says Collapse when hidden, meaning that element no longer will take up the space if it's hidden, and these elements down here, Bookings and Settings, will fill in that space. So let's select that. Check, and we'll come back to Index. We'll go to our preview. We'll get off of debug mode, and let's select our icon. Now you can see that everything is displaying correctly. We're not showing the managed properties because I am not a host account. So this is working exactly as expected, and it really wasn't too difficult to set that up. And since that was such an easy lesson, let's go right into the next lesson, start building out some of these pages that the users can navigate to. I'll see you over there. Grab a coffee, go for a walk, get some fresh air, come back, and let's get into the next lesson because we're making insane progress. We're going to be done with the Airbnb app in no time. I'll see you in the next lesson.